So how's it going with Larry now? I see a lot of buzz about this documentary. Everybody's talking about it.
We both read the New York Times article.
Yeah,
That's why.
yeah.
Right.
Well, we're doing our research.
I mean, we're not talking.
You
but
hate to hear that.
It's not that big a deal, though, really. I mean,
But if you called him right now, would you be good? Do you think if you like after the show, were like, hey, can we get coffee?
Yeah, I think
All
so.
right.
If you in the book, you'll see that I think he came
Comedy
to
Samurai,
me,
by the way,
Samurai.
quick plug. Get it anywhere you get books, right? Amazon, the bookstore.
Yeah, it's
anything.
everywhere. And I did the audiobook also.
Oh,
so,
nice.
Nice.
But because it's like one long monologue in a way,
Sure.
the audiobook. He came to me a couple of years before. This is in the book. A couple of years before this all happened, and I met him for lunch, and he said, "Look, HBO wants to bring some new blood into the directing of the show," and so there were a couple other older directors, David Steinberg, Brian Gordon, Bob Whitey, who had been the original director.
Oh yeah.
And he said, they asked me to let them go. And
Ew.
you're our favorite director, me.
Yeah.
You're our favorite director, but I think, will you take a hit for the team? Because I don't want to get rid of all those guys and then keep you. It'll look bad.
Yeah.
And I'll feel bad. And I was like, of course. At that point, I was only really
He's
directing.
taking them all to lunch and saying the same thing.
Right.
Look, you're our favorite.
I never thought about that. You know what I mean? I thought, well, yeah, I'll take one for the team. And I appreciate the idea of diversity, like hiring women, hiring people of color to try, see what they come up with, why not? And then that season, I noticed that Jeff Schaefer, who's a friend of mine and was running the show at that point, he directed almost all the episodes.
Oh,
so
boy.
it was another white guy. And I was like, you know what? I think Larry fired me in his kind of passive aggressive way.
Yeah.
And that may have been, and then I was like kind of upset about that for a minute. And then I thought, well, you know what? I had lost my temper on the set. That season with all the actors, and I just kind of lost my shit one day for a stupid reason that I immediately regretted, but I did lose it, which happens to directors a lot. So much tension,
Was it
and
Garland?
stress. No, it wasn't that actually. In that case,
It
it
can
wasn't.
be a lot.
No, that would have done it also.
Okay,
I'm not
okay.
saying I wouldn't. It wasn't in this particular case. It was in the episode where Bob Einstein is dating the woman with the bad tap water.
Oh,
Do you remember
yeah,
that?
Yeah, sure.
And Larry has the stabbing thing. He picks up the knife and he's
Yes.
like, I really want to stab.
Yeah.
It was a really funny scene.
That's already
but
funny.
there was something going on in the kitchen in the background that was distracting me. And I thought it was ruining the takes. So I kept on saying, will you stop moving back there? And they were going, nobody's moving. And I'm like, I'm seeing it on the monitor, and so I lost my shit.
Sure.
Very bad behavior. And so I thought, okay, well, if he fired me for that reason, he'd be justified. I mean, that was wrong of me to lose my shit in that situation.
Okay.
So to get back to your point, as far as I was concerned, everything was cool. If he fired me for that reason, I understood. If it was a true attempt to diversify the thing and he just didn't do it, that's cool. Larry could be very passive aggressive. We're both emotional cowards when it comes to confronting situations,
Yep.
So that's why a couple of years later, when I went to him and said, would you mind if I'd like to interview you? He immediately said yes.
Yeah.
And we did the interviews at his house and they went great. And he said they were the best interviews he'd ever done.
I would love to see this.
Yeah. And then the guy that shot the interviews, the first half of the interviews, the first 2 hours actually, he was
the trans Haitian guy. He made sure to get diversity on this one. Yeah.
He was doing the sound and the picture.
Yeah.
And he didn't do a great job with the picture. And so it was a lot of shakiness, a lot of blurriness. And I was like, oh, wow, it's all ruined. What am I going to do? And I was really depressed. And then I thought, well, what if I put a clip in here? What if And I sort of built it into a regular documentary, and it came out great.
Okay.
And so then I did the second part, and I did that with the second part. So we had a 4-hour thing with Seinfeld. So he would tell the story of what happened to him, and then you see the Seinfeld clip that we used that kind of was from that story.
Yeah.
And all his influences and all that kind of stuff. Is a very, very cool documentary. He looked great in it. We talked about all kinds of heavy subjects. He wasn't on. He wasn't on like a comedian. He was himself, which is a much more sort of worldly, wise, generous, thoughtful, contemplative person at this stage of his life. And there was a moment where he cried We talked a lot about death.
Jesus.
We talked a lot about family and his
Wow.
kids.
He
and
brought up the
stuff like
Jets.
that.
That's why he cried.
So I was really happy with it, and he was really happy with it. But there was something about it that he felt that he was exposing himself too much.
Uh-huh.
And so I gave him an opportunity. He gave me notes. I tried to make it, but I knew once this thought was planted in his head, it might never go away.
Mm-hmm.
And we actually got to that point where I finished it, and it was ready to go on the air the next day. They were marketing it already
Oh, I remember.
on HBO.
Wow.
And he called me and said that he wanted to postpone it. And I said, postpone means kill.
Yeah.
And that was I was actually directing another movie at that point. And
How much time did you put into this?
I worked on it through the entire pandemic, and then after for like another. I worked for a long time, and I was upset about it, but I would say really still not angry. Knowing him and knowing myself, we just needed to have that conversation like 2 years before. Where he was
Yeah.
like, I'm uncomfortable with this. Because then I would have taken the unadulterated footage and put it on YouTube or something like that.
Yeah.
Rather than make it polished and nice for HBO, I would have just put it out like that, if I was going to put it out at all.
Do you think he's this old school type of comedian where we've talked about this guys like Eddie Murphy, they kind of have a mystique to them.
Yes.
And kind of the less you know, the less you see them being super vulnerable, it's better for everything else they do. Do you think that's kind of the school
Well, I
he's from?
think that he evolved into that. You have to remember that he had kind of given up stand-up when we were doing Seinfeld, and then Curb was his attempt initially to get back into stand-up, and then it became Curb instead.
Yeah.
So he did develop much more of a TV persona, a comedy
Yes.
persona that he thinks the audience really wanted to see.
Right.
They want him to be funny, and they do want him to be funny, and he is funny. But this was more of a kind of a lower key version of him. The version that I knew. I know the guy since I'm like 22 years old.
Wow.
So I've known all those different levels of him, and I think that in some way he didn't want the audience to see that version of him at this point.
Sure, I get that.
Well,
That's why he wanted to do a live thing where there would be an audience and then he
Yes.
could get laughs.
I saw that.
And I wasn't as interested in that personally.
Could I buy it from you? I just want to see it. Like, how much would it take?
I have
like,
it on the phone right now. I can show
Really?
it to you. No.
Oh, I
But
Venmo
I
you.
do have it. I have it.
Because I
but-
remember the ad. Pull up the poster for the documentary. I remember
Right, that's
waiting
right.
for it. I was pumped.
What's that?
What's it?
The Larry David story.
I remember going, hey, calling a friend, like, here we go, baby. Let's watch this together.
It's great,
There it
actually.
is.
The trailer for it's really good. And you get a sense of how it worked.
Yeah.
And even his kids, he told me my kids loved it.
Ah!
And I thought, well, that's a guarantee,
But that might work against it comedically. When your
Right.
kids love it, you're
I
kind of
think-
like,
That's true.
well, they love me unconditionally.
I think that's part of the problem was like
Yeah.
there was too much emotion.
Right.
He is like no hugging, no learning. That's
Yes.
the Seinfeld.
Like
you
if
know.
my mom says, that's a great picture of you, I'm like, you're my fucking mom.
Yeah.
Right.
So there was something about it that he just was not comfortable with.
Yeah.
What was it that made him tear up?
Ooh, good question.
I think he was talking about his kids, actually.
Yeah.
He was talking about his kids and how much they meant to him. I mean, he had genuine emotion about that. Whereas, of course, if you watch him on Curb, it's all about him not having any feelings about
Yes,
anything.
yes.
And no kids.
Right, and no
Right.
kids. Right. That was a choice as well.
Yeah.
So, that's what it was. It was about his kids.
Damn, not the
Yeah.
divorce, not his
Well,
childhood.
we talked about the divorce. We talked about the childhood, but that didn't bring tears to his eyes
Got it.
necessarily. Yeah.
Feel free to kick me in the balls here. But the Rick Rubin of comedy.
Well, Rick Rubin
You're
and I
saying
used to
because of the beard. That's the only reason I'm saying that.
No, but you've worked with these amazing
Right.
comedic, just like they work with Tom. He worked Tom Petty and the Beastie Boys and
Yes, you're right.
Jay-Z
Rick-
and all these guys.
Rick Rubin and I were very tight at one time.
Ah.
Also, we were very good friends, actually.
Don't tell me there's another guy to falling out with. What happened?
Yes, there
Oh,
is.
Did you really?
When is it you,
That's
Larry?
for part two. It is me.
Okay,
It is me.
we got to the
Absolutely.
bottom
You
of
have
it.
to.
He's
when
going to
you
leave
read
this
the
pod
book-
and be like, those guys suck.
When you read the book, you'll see what an asshole I am. That's
Okay.
I promise.
All right.
We
We
walk away
hope
with.
you and Larry make up because that's such a
Definitely.
unique friendship. And
He
that's-
is the most important, I would say, really, he's the most important person in my adult life. He's done more to change my life than anybody.
So call him up.
You know, well, maybe I will. Maybe at some
coffee with
point I
him.
will. I don't hate him. I love him, actually.
Yeah.
And like I said, he made me a writer. He made me a director.
Yep.
You know, and I was like, again, a young guy when I met him, and he kind of showed me about integrity and discipline and the craft. I mean, he really kind of like laid it all out for me. And so I have deep gratitude towards Larry David, and I always will.
It's the shit part of this business. It's a business. Like you and Larry, you're artists, you're writers, you're creators, but the business part makes people have to get fired and disconnect. Like
Yeah.
me and him shot a show, and then some guy bought it, and they're like, well, what do we need him for? And I'm like, no, we got to keep him in. So we're
Right,
trying to
right.
keep him in, but it's a whole thing because it's business now.
Yeah, well,
There's money
and
involved.
business has a lack of ethics.
Yes.
And
Ironically.
artists have ethics.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah,
Should
it
be
is
the other way
weird.
around.
It
But you
should
got
be.
I think your friendships in this, I mean, that's literally why we started this pod. Is like, you
Right.
know, Mark and I were open micers together. We've been friends forever. And, we after reading your interview in the New York Times, we were talking about, we're like, man, I hope we're friends when we're older. you know?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Because the friendships in this are so important. The business is one thing, but like, you know, you and Larry have made incredible stuff together.
And been friends for 40 years.
Yes.
Long fucking time.
So this is a blip. This is a hiccup
Yeah.
in a long
Yeah, exactly.
friendship.
Exactly.
and the
Absolutely right.
fact that the documentary got, you know, killed sucks, but like, you know, I hope you guys figure it out.
You'll figure
Yeah,
it
yeah.
out, 100%.
Well, like I said, I don't think there's any hostility, really.
No.
You know, it's just like the way, you know, life, you know, I'm sure you guys have friends that you've drifted apart
Yeah.
for all kinds of reasons. Sometimes people die, but it's not always that. It's sometimes you just drift apart for one reason or another. Somebody marries somebody you don't like, or, you know,
Right.
that's another pet peeve thing, maybe. But shit happens, you know, and that's really true. And so that's sort of the situation here, you know. And so
Yeah.
by the same token, things could, as they unravel, they could re-ravel.
Definitely
you know.
re-raveling.
So, yeah.
What'd you say?
Oh, I was going to say that Sam had a girlfriend that disliked Mark for a
Yeah.
while.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, Mark, you afraid this is going to drive a wedge between you two? He's like, I'll be around when she's gone.
I'm not going anywhere. I'm here.